Okay, fourth year, so this is just a short video to show you how to make bread dough from scratch and how we're going to turn that into a pizza that's going to reflect the Eatwell guide. So first thing that you need is in your glass bowl is your 250 grams of strong bread flour. Now strong bread flour is called that because it has more gluten in. Gluten's really important when it comes to structure and it helps kind of form the product. You could use half wholemeal flour, so 125 grams, that would of course increase the fibre. I would only use half and half. I wouldn't use full wholemeal flour because it can be quite dry. So empty flour, you are going to add some salt. Now the salt is in here for flavour, it enhances it like so. And then we can put that to one side for the time being. You are going to get in your jug 130 mils of warm water. It's important that it's warm rather than hot or cold. So just put your little finger in and it should be kind of tepid in there. The next thing in here is going to be the sugar. Now the sugar is the food that's going to feed the yeast, okay? So that goes into there, and to that we then add the yeast. And then we're going to add some oil. Now the reason we add the oil, it is a fat, I know we're trying to make this healthy, but it helps keep the food moist, okay? We don't want our bread to be dry. There's no point in eating food that doesn't taste very good. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave this to ferment. So by that, the yeast is going to break down. We're giving the yeast all the things that it needs. So if you remember from third year, we learned about living things. They needed 4 things. They needed food, time, moisture and warmth. Remember, too many flies waiting? So food, time, moisture and warmth, and we have given them all of those things. We've got warm water, so that is your warmth and your moisture. For the time, we're going to let it prove. And for the food, it's got its sugar in there as well. So we're just going to give that a quick stir. That is going to ferment. Now as it ferments, it basically eats the sugar, it breaks down the sugar, and the yeast starts to give a carbon dioxide bubble. That bubble is what's going to push up through your bread dough, and that's what's going to make it rise. So give it a good mix and just put it to one side for a few seconds. I'm going to bring this one back. I'm going to mix in the salt evenly into the flour. Okay, I'm just going to make sure that I've got all my toppings prepared. So I've gone for some mixed peppers, lots of different colours, means I'm getting lots of different minerals and vitamins. And then here I've chosen some low-fat mozzarella, so I've looked for a healthy eating version rather than full fat. Okay, and you can just see here, in an ideal world, if we didn't just have an hour, I'd leave it for about 5 minutes to ferment, but you can start to see, and there, that little bubbles are forming. So at this point, I'm going to use a palette knife to stir it. You can use a wooden spoon, that's fine, but this I find helps keep a nice clear bowl. And we're going to add the liquid. Now, you probably want to add half of it to begin with, and then when you stir, you can start to gradually add more. It's much easier to add a little bit of water than to remove it, okay? We don't want this mixture to be sticking all over us. So a good mix around, get right into the corner of the bowl. A bit more. And then that should be perfect. Okay, you want it to be slightly sticky, but not look like porridge. Okay, so you can tell it's done because can you see it's kind of coming around my knife? Alright, it's coming itself into a ball away from the sides, and that's how it's done. Anything that's left over can just go to one side. And then what we need is a nice clean surface. Okay, so a little bit of flour onto here. And then pop that in the middle. What I recommend you do with your bowl is get some hot water in it, let it steep, and it's much easier to clean at the end of the lesson. And we're going to start to knead this dough. If you have a look at that texture, you can see it's quite broken. If you imagine the gluten as a coil, okay, and the coil is really tight, if you try to chew that coil, it makes it really chewy and hard and horrible. It's not the texture that we want. So our job here is to stretch the gluten. When we stretch the gluten, we stretch that coil, and that helps the carbon dioxide that the yeast has produced to make the bread rise. So what we're going to do is nice hands. Alright, if they are a bit sticky, a bit of flour, rub it in between, and we're going to knead. Okay, very good stress boosting technique. Keep the flour from sticking, but don't make it too dry. You don't want to dry out the bread dough by adding too much flour. If your dough does get really dry, what I recommend you doing is actually putting some olive oil on your hands, and we'll have that in school, and that will stop it sticking, okay? So keep kneading, and I'm going to do this for about another 5 minutes, and I'll show you. Okay, so the dough is now kneaded. You can see the change in the texture. It should be really stretchy, and that's those coils of gluten. It will get a little bit more sticky, all right? So do be careful, a little bit more flour if needed. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to let it prove, just to allow that fermentation process to happen. So we're going to put that to one side and leave it for about 5 minutes. And again, you'll see how it kind of doubles in size and puffs up a little bit. If you're a little bit short of time, though, we will have to leave this stage out. Whilst we're waiting for this, you can get washed. Okay, so the dough has been allowed to prove for 5 minutes, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make it into the pizza now. Okay, so take a pizza tray. School will provide these. A little bit of oil just to stop it from sticking all the way around. And then we're going to get this rolled out. I forgot to mention right at the start that I have preheated the oven. So the oven is on at 220, gas mark 8, and I put that on right at the beginning. So, rolling pin. A little bit of flour out on the desk, a little bit of flour on the rolling pin, and we want to roll it into a circle. So we start with a circle first of all. Now, because we've kneaded that gluten, it will shrink back, okay? Don't worry too much about it. That just means that you've done a good job. Once you've rolled out a kind of a circle shape, okay? And what you can then do is just lift that, do this, and then just put it down onto your tray, okay? Can you see that? All right, and then we're just going to shape it, push it to the corners of your pizza tray. All right, if you wanted to make a stuffed crust, you could do. How we do that is just get a nice circle shape to begin with. Okay. And then what you would do is around here, just put a small amount of cheese, a little bit of water, and then you just fold the crust up. If you just want to make a normal crust, what's really important is that when we put our tomato base sauce on, we do leave a little bit on the outside. Okay, so I'm just using my finger just to neaten it up so it looks a little bit more professional. And then tomato sauce, that goes on, put it into the middle, and then just spread it out using the back of the spoon as easily as possible. Okay, so I've spread that out on there, and then I'm going to add my veg. If you want to put the cheese on the bottom, that's absolutely fine, but nice and even. Be careful not to put too much on, all right? You don't want the pizza to be all soggy. If you've got your meat to go on here as well, if you've got some chicken, just make sure that is being cooked. Okay, and then we're going to go on with the cheese, just evenly around it, again keeping away from that crust, and then this is going to go into the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, so we can tell that the pizza is done because it's gone golden brown, and if you tap the outside it should be hollow, so we're just going to leave this to cool down a little bit, and then we can cut into our slices.